Well, there's a huge sense of anguish and despair with just waiting. And you really don't know. There's nothing you can do. So other than get up and have a go. And so in spite of the fact that the doctors said, look, there's an extremely slim chance that you will find a match if you campaign for Margot, we felt that a slim chance was better than no chance. So when Margot fell sick, it was October 2013, and the doctors said, actually from the outset, this is an extremely rare condition that she had. They'd seen 3 like her in 10 years at Great Ormond Street Hospital, and so from the beginning they advocated that she needed a bone marrow transplant because traditional chemotherapy wouldn't really do the trick. And I didn't know what that was, and the more people I spoke to, the more I realised that not many people did actually know what a bone marrow transplant was, and that's when Team Margot started, really. Family and friends came together from all over the place, in our community primarily, but much further afield, to help Margot find her matching donor. We know that from that initial 35,000 who signed up, statistically we know that 500 people over the next 10 years will now have the chance of a life-saving bone marrow transplant because of that.
Well, the ACLT was started 21 years ago, and it was started 3 years after my 6-year-old son had been diagnosed with an acute form of leukemia. He'd undergone 2 years of intensive chemotherapy treatment, gone into remission, but 9 months after going into remission he suffered a relapse, so the leukemia came back, and it was at that point that we were told that he needed a bone marrow transplant to beat the disease.
Your immune system and your bone marrow really is made up from, this is an area where race and ethnicity really matters, and I'm mixed race. My father's from Syria, there's a bit of Armenian in that. My mum is half Scottish and half Siamese or Thai, and that's just me. Vicky, my wife, is half English and half New Zealand. So our children are from all over the place.
The problem is that you're much more likely to find a donor in your own ancestral population. So a European is by far and away most likely going to have a North European donor, and as an individual of non-European ancestry is more likely to find a donor in the population of their birth. To determine the match, we call tissue typing. We actually look at proteins called HLA, or human leukocyte antigens. So these are proteins on the surface of everybody's white cell, and to a lesser extent on other tissues. And you have to match to all of those 10 proteins, ideally, to be considered a full match.
So we had to go to an unrelated donor pool, and that was something that we tried to influence and help by campaigning for Margot on her behalf, to swell the numbers, to get people from not just the UK but all over the world.
Because 21 years ago when we started there were less than 600 black people registered in the UK as potential donors, our doctor told us that Daniel had a 1 in a quarter million chance of finding a donor. And so myself and Daniel's stepfather, Oren, we decided to do something very quickly to try and increase the odds of Daniel finding a match. So we set up the ACLT, the African Caribbean Leukemia Trust, to raise awareness, get people registering in large numbers, ultimately to help Daniel, but eventually to help others as well that found themselves in exactly the same situation.
At any one point there are 2,000 people looking for a donor, and we will be facilitating about 1,300 transplants per year. Some of those will be abroad, but roughly we're doing that. But not everybody can find a match. So if you're Caucasian, you'll have about an 80–90% chance of finding a match. And in terms of if you're black or ethnic, you're going to have a sort of 40% chance of finding a match. But in terms of a perfect match, that's going to drop down to around 20%. And for Caucasian, it'll be around 60–70%. So there are still people who won't find a match.
I was diagnosed in February 2016, February the 12th, 2016, and it came completely out of the blue. I was completely healthy. Well, I thought I was healthy. I was at work. I was working still. I was doing sport. I was doing activity. I run regularly. I swim regularly. And actually, what happened was I was just actually tired. But because of my job, and I'm a teacher, and at the end of the term, we're generally quite tired. So I just assumed it was normal tiredness. But then it became kind of really fatiguey, where I couldn't actually get out of bed. I was that exhausted. I knew I'd need a donor from about week 4. What they do is they search the register for a donor for me every 3 months. And there's not been, I'm so unique, there's not one available that matches mine.
At a conservative guess, we think that we have registered between 80 and 90,000 people, and that's people of all ethnicities, but our target audience has always been to encourage the black and mixed race communities to register as donors because the numbers are so low. In some cases, yeah, people, it's just a matter of raising awareness and explaining what the process is to join the register. But for others, it's been challenging to engage people on this subject matter. I mean, to this day, we still meet people who were aware of our campaign for our son Daniel, who have never registered. And, you know, in fact, once you can get in front of people and you can explain in very simple terms what joining the register is and what will happen if you are fortunate enough to be a donor for a patient, then most people are quite happy to do it. So I would say that the biggest hurdle we have is lack of awareness and apathy.
A lot of people, I think, from ethnic minorities initially, didn't think that this kind of thing affected people like ourselves. We didn't realise, or we don't know still, that actually a lot of people like myself do have leukemia, do have other illnesses, where we actually need help from each other, because a lot of the people we've approached have no clue what I'm talking about. And when you ask people to register, they are like, well, what does that mean? They don't know anything, but then neither did I, to be fair.
I rewind, and I was completely absorbed in a different way, looking in a different direction, and I always thought, well, someone else will do it instead of me. Thinking of blood donation. With bone marrow donation, you might be the only person in the world that could help save this person's life. So you can't even palm that off to anyone else.
Hi, my name's Edward Cook, 21 years old, and I am a stem cell match for someone.
It's just one of those things I thought was a good thing. Just like people donate blood, donating stem cells is important, almost more important. You can make the argument one way or the other, but obviously with blood it helps lots of people, but stem cells is quite specific to that particular person.
We had a talk in sixth form, in second year sixth form, on Anothony, Nolan, the trust, and after that I felt like I should sign up. To me it didn't seem like a big deal. It was just like going to give you blood every month, and it was just a different donation centre, but a lot of people got behind it. One of my sister's friend's mother had cancer and had to have stem cell donation, and she couldn't believe, you know, that I'd done it and somebody else was going to be receiving it. So it's quite a heartwarming experience, yeah.
I think there's quite a lot of people who are scared about what the procedure might be, and it seems quite lots of big words, and you know, you start throwing around leukemia and cancer and stuff, and people have all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas about, oh, if I donate, maybe I'll get infected. I don't know, all these kind of weird mindsets people have, and I think it's just being clear with people about what it is. So that's kind of why I made that vlog, is just like, this is what happens, it's no big deal. You have 3 lots of injections, which increases, as I say, your stem cell production. And then you have to have a 4th injection, but on that one they want you to go to London or Sheffield, wherever you're donating, just so you're in the area sort of thing. And then you have that, 4th day, and then the day after that you go in and they set you up for the procedure. As you can probably tell, I'm donating right now. Blood and stem cells coming out my left arm, going to the machine on my right, and then coming back into my right arm. It's okay, it's not that unpleasant. I've been there for about 4 hours, so keep you updated.
The process isn't painful at all. The cannulas you get is the most painful part, and that is a prick of the needle. Once that's gone into your arm, that's it. That's as painful as the process gets.
2014, when we were told we have a match, there was a CMV negative match that matched Margot's particular condition and her makeup, and so we used that one. And I can speak on behalf of the patient's family contingent out there to say, oh my God, we are unspeakably grateful for all the blood and platelet donors, let alone Margot's bone marrow donor, because they gave us time, the gift of time, and hope with our daughter. And during that time, we saw her grow and blossom from an infant to a little toddler, and we had extra time.
My son waited 6 years for a donor to be found. So from the date of diagnosis to actually receiving his donated stem cells, it was 6 years. And in that time, he was largely on chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and other toxic drugs. If a donor had been found for him initially, right at the very beginning, he would still be here today. I am convinced of that.
Whilst we're doing better in terms of trying to find someone a match and getting the right donor and getting young people and males, what was very clear is that sadly 50% of people post-transplant will die within 5 years, and that we needed to think about how we could improve the outcomes of transplantation. We've had a research institute which was established in 1996 and does some fantastic research around GVHD, which is a horrible kind of condition you get post-transplant, and also about how understanding more about the 5 genes that we're looking at and how they influence outcome for transplant. I think in the next 10 years we should be able to say that most people should be able to find a donor, find their match. It should be that ethnic minorities also have the same chance as Caucasians, but also Caucasian and ethnic people can find the best match. We should be up at the 90%. I think also we need to really concentrate on improving the survival rate, and that 50% survival rate should be at 75–80%, and we will do everything we can to try and improve outcomes for people.
You know, the world is so big for a start. I believe there's got to be somebody for everyone. I mean, am I really that unique that I cannot find someone that has the same stem cells as myself, just like a lot of us? I think that's not the case. I think the case is we are just not on the register.